Good morning. It is indeed my honor and great blessing to my spirit to be here with you today. Let us take a few breaths and return to ourselves as we ready for our time together in worship. We are gathered in this here place, where every Sunday we come together with gratitude in our hearts and also in an attitude of remembrance. It is good to be together. In our times, this being together is a courageous statement of our witness. Just as poet Toy Derricott reminds us, joy is an act of resistance. Our collective presence here in this place, marking it as separate, keeping time that is sacred. It is an act of resistance that is necessary for our thriving. In our diversity, unity, we are gathered in the affirmation that it is indeed a rich bounty of joy, imagination, and hope when we weave the multiple strands of our lives together and center love and care for each other and the earth.
Oh, the Wonder Box is here. Any young people out there, young at heart, people feeling extra chippy today, want to come on up? Oh, good. You can sit right up here. Thank you. Oh, good. Excellent. Oh, well, I just got back from a little trip out of the country, and I've missed you all so much. And so it's so good to be back and see you all. And today we're going to be talking about a whole lot of things, but one of the big things is around a big word that relates to our hearts, that we put in our hearts often. What is that feeling that we talk about a lot related to our heart? I love you, right? Do we associate that with our heart? I love you. Well, love is the new and perhaps the enduring center of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. And this morning, we're going to be learning a little bit more about that. But I thought it might be good for us to have the Wonder Box to see if it can help us, because not only did love get a little bit more credit over the past couple of years, but 6 Unitarian Universalist values were identified. Some we are familiar with, and some we might be learning about in different ways. So perhaps there's something in the Wonder Box that can help us to think about our UU values that we're starting to talk about a little bit more, and we'll be talking about the next month and a half. So does anyone want to open up the Wonder Box? Yeah. Okay, let's see what's in there. Oh, perfect. You can go sit down. Thank you. It's, oh my gosh. Do you see what it is? What is it? What is it? It's my hand. It's my fist. It's my hand. Got these 5 beautiful fingers. A little anxiety biting, perhaps. But we have this beautiful hand, and coincidentally, if you have a hand, sometimes it does a lot of things for you. It does a lot of things for me, but also it can help remind us of our UU values. And I'm going to show you how with a little help from Emily Jones, who put together this little video. So let's watch this video and see a handy guide to the values of Unitarian Universalism. Let's watch.
A handy guide to the values of Unitarian Universalism. Unitarian Universalism has a set of values, ideas we believe are important. I'm going to help you learn them using my hands. Now, the values can be in any order you like. In this handy way of learning them, each one has a number, so you can follow along with your hands and fingers. We're going to start with the value of transformation. Imagine your fist is a seed. Now slowly unfurl your pointer finger like it's a sprout coming from the seed. Transformation means to adapt to a changing world and to grow spiritually. As your seed grows, it will look like the number 1. And that's how you can remember the first value, transformation. Our next value is equity. Hold up 2 fingers and turn them sideways. See how they kind of look like an equal sign? Equity means that everyone should be treated with inherent worth and dignity. This makes people feel like equals. That's how you can remember the value of equity. Value number 3 is pluralism. Hold up 3 fingers. Imagine 3 people with different ideas about God and who may have different cultures or experiences. Being able to hold many views at once and learn from each other is the value of pluralism. Our next value is justice. We're going to take our 4 fingers and curl them into a fist and hold it up high. This is a sign of strength. We need to be strong to dismantle racism and fight for justice. Value number 5 is generosity. Hold out your hand as though you are giving someone a gift. Generosity means to share the things you have that make a difference to others, like faith, presence, and resources. Our next value is love. Hold up 6 fingers. Use your pointer finger of one hand to trace a heart in the center of your other hand. Love is at the center of all of our values. Love is the power that holds us together. Our 7th value is interdependence. This is just a fancy word that means we're all connected to each other. Hold up 7 fingers. Walk your 2 fingers from one hand over to the palm of the other hand. Kneel them down to take a close look. Do you see how your palm is full of connecting lines like a web? We are connected and depend on one another. That's how you can remember interdependence. Those are our UU values. Remember that love is at the center and runs through all of our values. You carry love and values in your open mind, helping hands, and loving heart. What will you do with your values today?
Okay, if your mind wasn't blown by that, we need to watch it again. How cool was that? Transformation, equity, which is good for taking pictures, I heard. Pluralism, we talk a lot about that here. Justice, generosity. I love this one. Love at the center. And this one's fun. Oh, look at all that interdependence down there, that we're all connected. Oh my gosh. So I think that was for the kids. But we're all lifelong learners, and perhaps we'll be thinking more about those over these next 6 weeks and over these next 6 years and over these next 60 years for some of us. So I'm so grateful that we got to watch that together, and I'm sure we'll watch it again soon. So we're going to sing our children and youth out to their classes today, if you'll join me. This Wonderbox time was a little bittersweet for me. And perhaps if Jeanette was here, or Hattie, or others who grew up in a congregation like this, it's a little bittersweet to teach something so innocent and inviting the kids to think about these new values in a way that are a lot more complicated than what we laid out this morning. And yet those are some of the foundational language they will come to learn that will shape their worldview, just as for me and Hattie and Jeanette and others, the principles were for us. And just as probably before 1961 and the merger and other times, different things were used. Different, I don't know if it was hand signals back then, but different ways to talk about what is at the center of Unitarian Universalism. So it was bittersweet to mark, in a way, the end of that as being the primary, or at least the only way we talk about our faith. We have the beautiful 7 principles written up there, and we're not changing any of that. No, we are not. But in our classrooms, folks like Emily Jones, Adrian, religious educators across the country are developing more and more ways to talk about these values with love at the center. And so it is a little bittersweet. And so I was reflecting this morning about some of the ways that I was raised as a young Unitarian Universalist, and a couple short ditties came to mind, because that's how we do it, right? Some ditties or some hand signals. That's it. That's our pedagogies today. And it went like this. How'd it go? It goes, oh, I believe in every person's worth and dignity. In justice and compassion, I believe in equity, acceptance of each other, and encouragement to grow. A free and open search for truth to find the way to go. Affirm the right of conscience and affirm democracy. The goal of world community with peace and liberty. Respect the web of nature of which we are a part. These are UU principles we hold close to our heart. I learned that probably when I was 5 or 6 at a UU summer camp, and they stay with me even if I don't think about them for 10, 20 years. Because our actions, our teaching matters, and they impact us and they shape our lives. And one of the shifts, I think, that I worry about is what will guide us, what will guide them moving forward. Will there be enough at the center of who they are and of who we are to guide them for this next chapter? And we may have tipped the cards a little bit that love can guide us, will guide us, I believe, will guide us. And I was trying to think, oh yes, in all of those words I just said, one word that was missing was love. Not anywhere in the 7 principles, not out of a lack of love, but out of a primary commitment to other values, which are also important. Liberty, peace, reason, encouragement for growth, compassion, equity, justice. But it does end on another word that might get us there, heart. Hold close to our hearts, which reminded me of a different ditty. Is that the technical term? I think it is. And it went like this, also probably at the same UU summer camp. I'm a U. I'm a UU. I'm a UNITARIAN. I'm a U. I'm a UU. I'm a UNIVERSALIST. Well, I've got PEACE down in my HEART, so I can LOVEETERNALLY. I got peace down in my heart, so I can love eternally. And so perhaps there was something happening, a moving 25 years ago, 30 years ago in our movement. Perhaps love was there all along, is there all along. Our Universalist tradition would remind us that each and every moment. And so I'm confident that even in the bittersweet moment of today, that love and connection, our interdependence through time and space will continue to unite us in love eternally. May it be so, and amen. We have 2 readings. The first is a litany for survival by Audre Lorde. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decisions, crucial and alone, For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways, coming and going in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward at once before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures like bread in our children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who were imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk. For by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive.
For poet and essayist Ruskin, our attempts to understand the real depth of joy, to experience joy, is only possible if we allow ourselves to experience sorrow. To live into joy, then, it is an invitation to invite our sorrows in, not as a permanent guest, but a conversation partner in our journey. Let us hear Ruskin's invitation to cozy up, so to speak, with our sorrows, so that we can then incite joy. We ask sorrows about themselves and we scooch closer to hear. We eventually decide to invite a small group of friends over for a potluck because we want sorrow to meet them. And sorrow says, maybe more than just your closest friends, yes. So we add to the list a couple of acquaintances from work, from the supermarket. We put our mechanic on the list, our chiropractor, and the neighbors we have wave a hello, but no more than that. And then sorrow asks, what about that guy? That is someone you really don't like. And after thinking about how could possibly sorrow know that, meaning I hate that dude, sorrow says to you, better invite him too. Damn, okay, you say. And looking over your shoulder as you see the growing list of invitations, sorrow snuggles you in the arm and says, maybe just invite anyone with some sorrow to bring along. Couldn't be that many people. Looking around your little house, sorrow reminds you, this is a good size place. So we open up, we bring a dish and bring your sorrows, and we prepare a few staples with the help of sorrow. Your sorrow even roots around in the antique cabinet you never looked anymore for how bad it hurts and pulls out your mother's handmade placemats, quilted and embroidered with anyone's initial. Let's use this, sorrow says, clapping them together to get the dust out. And when the guests start showing up, just as your sorrow is pulling the loaf of bread from the oven and you're dressing the salad as the first people just arrive, they're nodding and smiling when you let them in. Is this the place? Yup. And then a few more ring the doorbell and they start coming in twos and threes and in squads and family. So you just keep the door open front and back because they're coming in droves. And the house is already too full, way too full, you think. but somehow folks just keep squishing in, and it somehow never quite fills up. They bring their dishes and their sorrows. Some of them are obviously all pros at the potlucks, looking for a place to put their dish, and some, of course, forget their goodies. But at this potluck, no one forgets their sorrows. And they introduce them to each other. I like you to meet my sorrow. We holler at each other, dipping the flatbread into the hummus. Good to meet you, we shout, smiling and nodding at the sorrows, who also smiled and nod. Some half shrug and raise their eyebrows. This is mine. Everyone jostles that sorrow, and he leans up against who he came with. There's a fight over the last cookie before one of the sorrows breaks them into 10 pieces, and they all take the bite from Sorrow's hand, and they moan like a choir. It goes on like this, growing louder and more raucous. This potluck of sorrows, our sorrows. It is not long before someone's break out the cards in the kitchen, and a few of the people rummage the fridge in the pantry. And they're wanting to try to make those delicious oatmeal cookies. Some of the elders and the youngsters are sitting with their sorrows in a circle, crafting kites out of the obituary pages of the newspaper. And another group is sitting on the ground in front of the wood stove, which somehow stays stuck and burning. And they are doing that levitation trick where everyone puts a finger or two under the person. I'm assuming you remember that. Me and my sorrow each elbow each other and are like, yo, check this out. No way, because the dude isn't small at all, like not really small. And neither is his sorrow, who's sitting cross-legged on the dude's chest. And you know what? They lift him and his sorrow like they are just about nothing. The dude's face, which looked like some kind of somber at first, and his eyes were closed, just slide into a big smile, and his eyes will pop wide open. And after he gasped, he actually cackles up in there. I mean, he starts laughing so hard that he cries. And then they kind of drop him and catch him, and they are all laughing and crying and dancing, which has been intermittent, just blast off. All of us and our sorrows, sweating, stomping, shaking, tearing it all up. The pictures are falling off the walls, the books are falling from the shelves. Some logs are ablaze and even spilling from the stove. This is care, this caring, this incitement, this is joy. It is my pleasure to bring greetings from Meadville Lombard Theological School, our Board of Trustees, faculty, staff, and students. You may be wondering this morning why so much talk of sorrow. Why so much talk about surviving, particularly with an express understanding that we may not have been meant to survive. So I'm asking you for a few more minutes to follow me along, because our faith tradition is a living one and a tradition on the move, constantly extending us an invitation to move into deeper understandings, to embrace deeper commitments, to be transformed, so that we can be agents of change, in a word, in search for beloved community. That is our shared faith invite us to pick up the work that others have done before us and done well. To be courageous in our actions as we practice works of compassion when faced with our shortcomings. And to keep working together until that appointed time when it is come for us the hour to lay our burdens down, so that others can pick them up and continue the work we started. But beloved, that time is not yet. And so we have meaningful work to do. we have good trouble to steer. And to do that, we have to learn to survive. We also have to learn to move and live with our sorrows in our collective potluck so that we can incite our joy for transformation. In the spirit of transformation and love, we gather together to reflect in this profound shift in Unitarian Universalism as we embodied the challenge of the revised Article 2. This is a revision that centers love and transformation, guiding us to imagine our world, a world where justice is just not one aspiration among many others. But how are we to transform ourselves to make this change a reality? And thus the power of love. Love is the power that holds us together, and it is at the center of our values. It is the force that heals us when we're broken. It is the force that can bind us together across our diverse religious practices and belief. It is a guiding compass that helps us in those sticky moments with our relationship, with families and communities. And I'm sure as we draw closer to November, you know what we're talking about. This is an understanding of love for me that is deeply rooted in our universalist heritage, which affirms that the power of love is enough to save us all. It is not a forced salvation. It is an invitation to join in the work. It is an invitation to say that there's always room at the table if you choose to sit. This is not a passive love nor a passive welcome, but an active one, a creative force that compels us to dismantle systems of oppression through the enhancement movement of love. My understanding of having love at the center is not only rooted in our universalist tradition, but also in an ethical one, the ethical tradition of care ethics. For those of you who are not familiar with care ethics, let me share that it was first introduced by feminist thinkers like Neil Noddings, Virginia Held, and John Toronto. Care ethics ask us very challenging questions like the following ones. What do we owe each other in our private spaces and in public spaces? How our acts of caring for one another not only sustain our friends and family and loved ones, but can actually spill out into thriving in the world. It also asks us questions like who gets to bear the burden of care? And how do we care for those who care for us? Those of us who are parents or care for others know the deep commitment that it takes to lovingly do those tasks. And oftentimes, how little space there is for us to rejuvenate, to recuperate. Demanding or asking for that care is not an imposition. It is something that we owe. It is something that is owed to us. So this ethics of care demands of us that we turn toward one another with focused attention to how we live. Nobel Prize winner Toni Morrison, in one of her essays in the volume, the title, Mouth Full of Blood. And by the way, as a parenthesis, if you were to look for that title, you have to look for it carefully by that title. That is a title that was published in England, in the UK, but in the United States, it was published as a notion of self-regard. So look for the title, Mouth Full of Blood. In that essay, she wrote the following, and I invite you to hear this as a prayer. Dream the world as it ought to be. Imagine what it will feel like not to be living in a world loaded with zero life weapons, manned by people willing to lose them, to develop them, or store them for money or power or data, but never for your life, never for mine. What would it look like to live in a world where every solution of serious learned people to practically every big problem was not to kill someone? This is my prayer most days. What a challenge it is that our most sophisticated ways of knowing the world and then solving our problems are often predicated in a notion of scarcity, of the deprivation of another, depriving some of us of comfort or exploiting our natural world, which mean removal of people from lands, so that then we can think of ways to do better. We've been doing this for centuries. Now, this is the opposite, I think, of wholeness, and it is the opposite of care and caring well. Morrison also continues like this. Imagine, envision what it will be like to know that your comfort, your fun, your safety are not based in deprivation. It is possible, but not if we continue our outmoded paradigms to moribund thinking that has never been preceded or dappled by dreaming. To dream is to make this possible. And I will say it is not possible, but a necessity. And I think, and I invite you to consider that when we center love and transformation, we are calling each other to dream a new world, to dream what transformation is possible and how we can grow as a spiritual community, as an ethical community, by embracing our collective dreams. It is an invitation for us then to imagine a world where justice is not a goal, but an ever-present dream that we work collectively in our everyday, whether it is a small act or a larger one, whether it is teaching a young one how to read and how to tie a shoe, an act of care so that you don't stumble, where it is sitting with an elderly with a meal to keep company. In those acts, we are transforming ourselves and those around us. And this transformation is also an invitation into peace. It is an invitation into well-being. It is an invitation to transform our Dharma. And yes, I'm using that intentionally. I oftentimes take inspiration from the Hindu tradition when I think about questions of justice, and particularly questions about transformation. In the Hindu tradition, the Dharma is really connected to living who you are meant to be. And of course, that oftentimes can be interpreted in the negative, that you will be returning back in a circle of rebirth and living again, sometimes quote unquote as a punishment until you get your act together, right? And do what you're supposed to do. But I think that's perhaps is a too simplistic of a reading. I really don't like that understanding. What I find inspiration is the understanding that you are invited again to continue the work that you started for your blessing and that of others until your work is completed and you have fulfilled your destiny. Then you can rest well. Being on this journey towards continued rebirth is a journey of transformation. And that can only be achieved when you realize your true nature. Who were you meant to be, and who were we as a faith community were meant to be? That is the true meaning of liberation, that transformation makes possible, that we can break these cycles so that beloved community finally is a reality. To live in towards transformation then is our duty, our Dharma. It ought to be foundational to how we see the world and how we move in the world. So to follow your Dharma, to live your destiny to the best of your ability, is to act in harmony with the world, with one another, and with nature. You see, those are those acts that move sorrow and incite joy. We should make transformation a practice, and more than a practice, it ought to be our spiritual discipline to attune ourselves, our life, our action, how we interact with one another, to the sacred wisdoms that we glean in the world, whatever the tradition that inspires you. Bring that along this journey into our collective potluck of sorrows so that we can learn to love each other fiercely. In this work, then, of transformation, we are living in ways that we can live into our greatest hope. And for me, my hope is that I become to be known as I truly am, with all my faults and my shortcomings, but also my gifts, so that I get to know you as you truly are. And together, in covenant, we can transform this world. Such practice, I think, is an act of fierce tending to ourselves, and it requires self-love. Ali Smith and his brother Atman Smith and their friends, Andre Gonzalez, says the following: where there is no hope, there is no love, and certainly no self-love. Because without self-love, every other hope of change fades away. When you are keeping your own company, when you're regarding yourself staring back at you at the mirror, who stares back at you? Is your gaze returned to you with loving kindness? Or is it a hard, chilly gaze, a look that chills you to your very core? When those dearest to your heart, those who you hold in tender intimacy, that leads to such closeness that in their eyes you can see mirrors of yourself, your reflection shining forth, do you allow yourself the gift of rest and be held with the love that they may be regarding you? That love is important if we want to be transformed and transform our world. So the invitation this morning to all of us, as we think of the ways in which we survive, as we think of the sorrows that we bring along in our shared potluck of humanity, how our self-love will be an agent of sharing medicine with others so that we can heal together. And in so healing, we can transform our world. It is good to be reminded that not all medicine is good medicine. Some medicine can be unpleasant, bitter even, but we know that we will be better. I hope that today, as you reflect on the new principles, the new values, and if you think of the work of transformation, that you allow yourself the gift of mourning the passing of what it used to be, and allow yourself the gift to dream new possibilities, new hopes. Think of the work that we have to collectively do to tend to this living tradition so that we can entrust it to the next generation for them to keep up the good work that we have started. May it be so, and blessed be.